Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome once again to another IPSA kind of magic, or should I say IPSA kind of magic. I don't know which rolls off the tongue easier, but of course I'm joined by our Lord and Master Hamish McClare of Search and Convey, the guy who had the idea in the first place of doing this. This is an information station, if one could call it that. We are here to try and raise the vibration of all the information that's out there about what it is to be an independent personal search agent, and why it is important that that each one, although each agent retains their individuality, that they come together as a fellowship to ensure that you get the right searches at the right time with the right knowledge. And today's topic is the role of a proper search pack. And I know nothing about the search pack, so I'm going to, as per usual, toss the caber, as it were, over to you, Hamish.
Well, it's fortunate every now and again, Gareth and I just have us together here, so we can actually attempt to, it doesn't always happen this way, attempt to stay on topic. We have this habit of being distracted so very, very easily.
Yeah, but it's called conversation, Hamish, and I love the fact that we meander around, but at least we get some really useful tips and interest out there, so that's great.
I mean, from my particular perspective, the guests that we have on here, they do give us some tremendous information. And I know just every week I could probably get almost the same people coming on, and they would be able to give us that wide variety of information. And I just, when I thought of the topic we were speaking about on this particular week, I was thinking, crikey, and just about everybody within IPSA would be able to actually answer this exactly the same way as we're sort of discussing that particular topic. But as I said, we're speaking about search packs. We are actually sort of known, and of course, the reason why IPSA was originated was so we can actually share our knowledge and, in fact, share our time to a certain extent, because it does seem a bit daft, particularly if you're meeting somebody on a regular basis, which we tended to do. You go into a local authority, you bump into Jackie, you bump into Heather, you bump into Bart, you jump into Sharon. What's the point in each of us following each other around? We may as well sit in the same car and go around in the circuit or something. What's the point in doing that if we do all have a standard quality that we can actually provide? So this is how it came about, that we actually, well, let's save the time. Getting up to Newcastle and back, that's going to take me a day, and that's one search, and that's him. Whereas speak to Michelle or Jackie sort of up then, we can actually get the search back from them probably quicker actually than actually driving there and back, to be perfectly honest.
But of course, there's an added benefit in that those agents in that particular region will probably already have a relationship with that localized authority, so they'll probably get more information quicker than somebody from a completely different region. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely. But yes, first of all, they know the person, they know who to speak to, they know the person that holds the knowledge that they need to retrieve. But there's another aspect which is sort of even better than that, is the fact that they've already got searches. They'll be carrying out searches at that particular council. They're going there anyway. And
right.
This was the whole concept behind it. So people were actually going in there. So this is what we started off. It was the local authority search. However, because we're working for individual solicitors sort of all over the country, the solicitors, bit by bit, as we well know, the pressure's been put on them to get involved with much more information than was originally required of them for the whole conveyancing process to take place. And the first one which came in, which was recommended by the Law Society, was the drainage and water searches. And then we added from the drainage and water searches, it then actually sort of came in that you really need an environmental search. So we've got those three searches, which are the basis for, if you like, the solicitor will need those. We've also found, depending on where you are, and this is sort of quite interesting, We've just had one of our providers, one of our independent providers of environmental searches. They've just brought out a coal mining report. Now, so all of these things have been added to that particular sort of search pack. And initially it was assumed that, well, it's only the solicitor that needs to know and understand what's going on. However, over time, and it's not, when you think about this, it makes an awful lot of common sense. The person who's buying the property, surely they ought to be able to understand. And this is part of one of the reasons why we have these podcasts. Not just this one particularly, because this one is directed towards the independent sort of search side of the business. But over this particular one and several others that we carry out, we do bring up the other subject matter of the contents of the particular pack and the various different sort of experts. And we'll be continuing to do that over time. But what we want to be able to do is get the information for the solicitor. And of course, they understand what they're doing because they're lawyers at the end of the day.
Right.
However, the poor man in the street doesn't necessarily understand the way legal packs are sorted out. If you were to actually look at a search which came back from a council, it is full of so much complication in many, many respects. What we've tried to do, although it's actually sort of called the local authority search, the con 29, it's CO, I should say it's CON. It's nothing to do with con. Yeah, it's called a CON 29R form.
It just rolls off the tongue.
Oh, absolutely. And so what it means is those are the required questions. There's a second part to it, which is optional questions. And on optional questions, you have all sorts of various different things. It can be to do with advertising, it can be to do with registered commons, village greens, and all sorts of information of that nature. But what we try and do, we will produce a report which is nicely, if you like, nicely balanced, so anybody reading it can understand the basics of it. You would need a property lawyer to go through it fully in depth, unless you're working with someone like Wendy that we have on some of our other podcasts from the First Time Buyers Club. If she's working with you, she would explain what all of these things meant anyway. And she is far better at answering the queries, funny enough, than even I am. If anybody has a query, I'll go and speak to Wendy Gibson, the First Time Buyers Club, because she will know the answer much more readily because she is working on behalf of the buyers, so she can actually translate. But what we want to do is to get a proper search pack that contains the proper information. And by proper, it is somebody who knows the locality. It is pointless getting somebody who doesn't know the locality to carry out the search. And I think we've said before, the great thing is, here we are in Oxford. I could get a solicitor in Liverpool to be carrying out the transaction. However, they're not familiar with the geographical region. So it would make practical sense, somebody like us, who was familiar with Oxford, to actually go in and get that information. So we're putting together a pack which is understandable, which in a way we've also, as we've spoken about before, we've taken out information which is not relevant. And we call it a refined search, because very often there will be information there which isn't necessarily needed in the same way that it actually comes out of the council. It comes out very, very complicated. And in fact, you can have it sort of, there could be as many as 25 sentences when you actually sort of come out with some of these planning permissions. But it doesn't need to be that, because it's speaking about a massive great estate. You don't need the hundreds and hundreds of words that are pouring out of that particular information, but the detail is actually sort of there in the planning, if anybody wants a copy of the planning. So we try and simplify, we try and refine, but all of the information is there in the background. And really what we're trying to do is, by refining it, take out information that the solicitor doesn't need to. Unless they take out, it is because some information is duplicated as well. We will take out what the property lawyer doesn't need to be including whilst they're doing their particular level of the work. So it's a simplification process, but also trying to make sure that each of the searches that we carry out, here where we are in Bicester, Oxfordshire, they didn't have any coal mines. In fact, to my knowledge, I don't recollect there being any mines at all in Oxfordshire. You cross the border into Northamptonshire, and there was significant work carried out around the Corby area in particular, where there were a series of coal mines. And therefore, you might wish for a coal mining report for that particular area. Now, who knows best about where you would get, whether you needed one or not, somebody who worked that particular sort of area. Or you could safeguard it and buy a report that also contained coal mining. So if you like, it's getting the right information, because when you have a buyer, when you have a solicitor, and first of all, the more confident the solicitor is, the easier it's going to be anyway for the whole procedure to go through.
Right.
But also, it's easier for the buyer to understand as well.
Well, it seems to me that evening out the whole process, oiling the wheels of the industry, as it were, means that you'll end up with a much smoother process overall.
Well, that's the whole intent, because we can highlight much more readily those marks. We tend, as much as possible in our particular reports as well, which is very, very helpful. The council won't do this. We tend to use the traffic light sort of system.
Right.
If all is green, all is well. If all is if you get a bit of amber sort of coming into play somewhere along the line, it might be worth taking note of this, but it's not going to impede you permanently. It's just, hey, have a little look. If you're not too, and in many, many instances, it will be something like, hey, look, your neighbour's got a tree which is hanging over your garden, but it's got a tree preservation order on it, so you can't go hacking it. Just in information of that particular sort of nature. And of course, if there's a red, you need to eradicate the red and find out why we've got red there. And it could be something to do with, for example, if it's in a certain area, conservation area, for example, you're restricted in terms of what you can do development wise. So if you wanted to buy a property and expand it by a certain amount, if it's in a conservation area, you're restricted. And if it's a listed building, you're restricted as to what you. So these things, you need to actually point those out, but it does allow the smooth flow. It means the buyer has much more information to hand, or can see more readily what the information is, to make, if you like, a decision which is based on something that they can understand themselves. Yes, of course, they have their solicitor to explain, or there could be another expert, because most of the experts, what we would tend to do with a pack, when we say a proper pack, is we will include the search in the pack, and the providers of the environmental information have their own internal experts who can actually explain what goes on. Some are better than others. We won't go into the depths of that particular one at the moment, but this is what we would include in the pack. We would make sure that our packs contained data that was, if you like, if there was going to be a query, people could answer that query for them. And we would actually put that in detail within the pack to save, if you like, because if we don't put that information in the pack, the solicitor's got to hunt it down, or the buyer's got to hunt it down.
Yes, which in turn creates more delays. Having it all there in the pack ready for them should mean that you don't have to go hunting elsewhere for it. It's ready and waiting.
Well, this is it, because solicitors are very, very busy people. And particularly since we know there is a shortage. There's a shortage of qualified solicitors who are actually sort of working on local authority searches. And in fact, just to compound the issue, and this is where something else sort of comes into it, which will be subject to another conversation, probably not an IPSA one, but one of the ones come a section 106, because people say, what the heck's that? But it is it is a charge against the property and does limit sort of certain things, or means certain monies have to be paid. It means all sorts of complicated things. So we better have an explanation of that on some occasion. However, if you like the simple, straightforward things, very, very easy to understand, and the simplest thing, keep it simple, stupid. And that particular sort of type of process, do get the reports from the right people.
Yes.
Whether they be the local authority searches, whether they be the environmental searches, whether they be the drainage and water, the coal mining, all of these, you get the right searches from the right people, and it makes a much, much smoother operation for everybody who's involved with it. And that's really what, if you like, at IPSA, our particular sort of association, we've gathered together, as we've explained so often in the past, we have gathered knowledgeable people, all of whom have experience within their locality. And those are the ones that we ask to contribute, to put their information in that they've gleaned, they've obtained from the local authority, from the contacts that they know personally in the majority of cases. And as we found out, the majority of relationships with local councils are long-term relationships. They're not ones that have just started, which means there's continuity. So when the land charges officer changes, the same person is going in there, so they can actually enable the continuity, which the new local land charges officer won't necessarily be able to do. And the other aspect is, and we keep mentioning this, it is a very, very important one, particularly the way our current government are trying to work things,
yes,
right or wrongly. If they're creating unitary authorities where they're combining together councils, they are losing knowledgeable staff. However, we are not using the knowledgeable staff, apart from Jack. Well, we haven't lost Jack, have we? She's
no, she's now become a consultant, so she's a sort of gun for hire, but keeps us all on the straight and narrow.
Which is absolutely right. So let's try and keep it simple. Let's keep it straightforward, and let's keep it to the right searches contained within there, instead of any old search. If you go down a particular route, you are restricted, depending if you're getting these search packs from somebody outside of an independent source, you are restricted on occasions as to who you are, which reports you can get hold of.
Right.
You don't have the flexibility of choice. Right. As I said, we try and keep it simple, so the right searches are being provided from the right source to make it simpler for everybody.
So today's IPSA Kind of Magic was brought to you by KISS, it seems. Keep it simple, stupid. And do you know what? Never was a truer word spoken in jest. If you've got all your information there in the right report presented to you correctly, it's going to stop everybody from going around and creating yet more delays when they have to look elsewhere. Thank you so much, Hamish. As ever, it's been a learning phase for me. Every day is a school day. And to all of you out there, just remember, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, but at the same time, please try and look after your mental health. Until next week, bye-bye now.